They made her cook, clean, serve. She was the poor cousin, until the day the inheritance flipped the table and their entire legacy. My name is Sophie Carter, I'm 26, and I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, where I became the charity case of the wealthy Preston family after my mom died when I was 16. My uncle, Robert Preston, took me in, but his wife, Diane, and their kids, Emily and Nathan, treated me like a servant. I cooked their meals, scrubbed their floors, and endured their taunts. They thought I was nothing, a burden they tolerated out of kindness. But their grandmother, Evelyn Preston, saw everything. In her final days, she made me her confidant, and when her will was read, I became the sole heir of her $40 million fortune. I cleaned their house. Now I owned it. It started 5 years ago at the Preston estate, a sprawling mansion on Raleigh's outskirts. I'd been living there since Mom's death, sleeping in a small attic room, cooking breakfast by 6 a.m. Zrenie I uborka do polunочи. At a family Christmas dinner, the table was set with crystal and silver, but the conversation was about Emily's Ivy League acceptance and Nathan's new sports car. I served the turkey, staying silent, when Diane smirked. "Sophie, don't spill anything." Emily laughed. "She's our live-in maid, Mom," Nathan added. "Lucky we let her stay." Robert just nodded, distracted by his phone. Their words stung, but I was used to it. To them, I was the poor cousin, invisible except when they needed something. The truth? I wasn't just a servant. Evelyn, the family matriarch, had watched me for years, her sharp eyes missing nothing from her wheelchair in the mansion's sunroom. She owned 70% of Preston Properties, a $40 million real estate empire spanning Raleigh's commercial and residential markets. While I dusted her bookshelves, she'd talk about her life, her regrets, and her distrust of the family's greed. "Sophie, you have a heart," she'd say, sipping tea I'd brewed. "They don't." I'd smile, thinking she was just kind, but she was planning something bigger. Evelyn passed away last spring, and the family's focus was on her fortune, not her loss. Emily and Nathan were already eyeing new condos. Diane and Robert planned a European vacation. "Sophie's just here to clean up," Diane said at the funeral, waving me off to fetch coffee. I stayed quiet, but I knew Evelyn had other plans. During one of our last talks, she'd gripped my hand, her voice firm. "Sophie, you're my legacy. I've made sure of it." I thought she meant a small gift, a keepsake, maybe $1,000. I didn't dare imagine more. But I kept her gifts, a handwritten letter calling me her true heir, voicemails thanking me for my care, and photos of us together, laughing over her old recipe books. The will reading was set at the estate, with the family's lawyer, Margaret Walsh, presiding. I wasn't invited. Servants don't sit at such tables, but Evelyn's nurse, Clara, called me. "She insisted you be there," Clara said. "Bring your letter." I learned the reading would be filmed for legal records, with local media invited due to Preston Properties' prominence. Perfect. If the family tried to erase me, the truth would be public. I reached out to Clara, who confirmed Evelyn had told Margaret I was central to the will. "It's big, Sophie," Clara whispered. "They won't see it coming." I started building my case. I saved Evelyn's voicemails where she called me family and criticized the Prestons' greed. I had screenshots of texts from Emily, ordering me to clean faster, and Nathan joking I'd beg for scraps after the inheritance. I also found emails between Diane and Robert, planning to sell Evelyn's downtown properties for quick cash, against her wish to preserve them for community use. Clara slipped me a copy of Evelyn's last meeting notes with Margaret, hinting I was the primary beneficiary. I didn't know the full scope, but I knew it would shake the family. The night before the reading, I stood in my attic room, staring at a simple navy dress, understated but strong. My folder was packed, Evelyn's letter, voicemails, texts, and the meeting notes. I texted Clara, "Ready?" She replied, "Evelyn's watching from above." make her proud. My heart raced, but I was steady. The Prestons thought I was their maid. Tomorrow, I'd show them I owned their world. Hey, if you're hooked on this story, hit that subscribe button for Revenge Line. We bring you epic family drama and revenge tales every week. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from, Raleigh, New York, or across the globe. Stay tuned, because Sophie's about to flip the table. The will reading at the Preston estate in Raleigh, North Carolina, was 5 days away, and I, Sophie Carter, was in my cramped attic room, piecing together a plan to ensure the truth about my role in Evelyn Preston's legacy would come to light. My uncle Robert, his wife Diane, and their kids, Emily and Nathan, had treated me like a servant for years, calling me the poor cousin while I cooked, cleaned, and served in their sprawling mansion. They thought I was a burden, tolerated out of pity after my mom's death. They didn't know Evelyn, their grandmother, had seen my loyalty and made me her confidant. Her will, set to be read before a filmed audience and local media, would reveal I was the sole heir to her $40 million empire. I cleaned their house. Soon, I'd own it. I'd spent months gathering evidence, knowing the Prestons' wealth and influence could crush me if my case wasn't airtight. Evelyn's handwritten letter, tucked in an old book, called me her true heir and criticized the family's greed. I had voicemails from her, saved on my phone, where she said, "Sophie, you're the only one I trust." Screenshots of texts showed her praising my care while dismissing Diane's selfishness. I also had photos of us together, laughing over tea in her sunroom, proof of a bond the family never noticed. Clara, Evelyn's nurse, had confirmed Evelyn named me in her will, but I didn't know the full extent, only that it was significant enough to shake the Prestons to their core. Clara was my lifeline. We met at a quiet Raleigh cafe, far from the family's social circle. "Evelyn told Margaret Walsh you're the key to her estate," Clara said, stirring her coffee. "The family thinks it's theirs. They're in for a shock." I leaned forward, my voice low. "How big is this, Clara?" She hesitated, her eyes serious. "Big enough to make them hate you. Bring everything you've got." Wow. I nodded, my stomach tightening. The Prestons, Diane with her socialite airs, Robert with his real estate clout, Emily with her Ivy League ego, and Nathan with his spoiled arrogance, would fight dirty to keep their fortune. I needed more leverage, so I dug into their dealings. Clara slipped me emails from Preston Properties, showing Robert and Diane planning to sell Evelyn's downtown Raleigh properties for quick cash, against her wish to turn them into community centers. One email from Emily to Nathan read, "Once we get the money, I'm buying a condo in Miami." Nathan replied, "Split it fast, before taxes hit." Their greed was exactly what Evelyn had feared. She'd told me she wanted her legacy to serve Raleigh, not fund their lavish lives. I saved the emails, knowing they'd be crucial if the family challenged the will. I reached out to Margaret Walsh, the family lawyer, through Clara, sending a discreet email. "I have evidence of Evelyn's intentions for me. Please ensure I'm at the reading." Margaret replied, "You're expected, Ms. Carter. Bring your documentation." Her tone was professional, but I sensed she knew more than she let on. Clara later confirmed Evelyn had met with Margaret privately, revising her will to protect her vision. I didn't press for details. I wanted the family blindsided, just as they'd humiliated me for years. Back at the estate, I played the servant role perfectly. Diane barked orders daily. "Sophie, scrub the guest rooms, don't dawdle." Emily tossed her laundry at me, saying, "Make it quick, Maid." Nathan smirked, leaving dishes for me to wash. Robert barely spoke, too busy planning his post-inheritance yacht purchase. I smiled, nodded, and quietly saved their texts. Diane complaining about my slowness. Emily joking I'd beg for a job after the will. Their cruelty was fuel, pushing me to refine my plan. I needed an ally at the reading, so I looped in my friend Lily, a former co-worker from a part-time job I'd held before moving to the estate. Over coffee in downtown Raleigh, I showed her my evidence. "You're going to war," she said, her eyes wide. What if they contest it? I gripped my mug, my jaw tight. They can try, Evelyn's word is final, and I've got proof. Lily agreed to attend the reading, posing as my support. She also had dirt. Records from a family friend at Preston Properties, showing Nathan had misused company funds for personal expenses. Use this if they push back, she said, handing me a USB with the files. I prepared a statement for the reading, concise but powerful, outlining my bond with Evelyn and her trust in me. I included excerpts from her letter and voicemails, framing me as her chosen heir. I practiced in my attic room, standing in front of a cracked mirror, keeping my voice steady. I wasn't going to beg or cry. I'd be calm, undeniable, the one in control. I also researched North Carolina inheritance law, learning that wills backed by clear intent and witnesses were nearly incontestable. Evelyn's letter and Clara's testimony would seal it. The family wasn't clueless. They sensed something. A few days before the reading, Diane cornered me in the kitchen. "Sophie, you're not expecting anything from Mother's will, are you?" she asked, her tone sweet but venomous. I shrugged, wiping the counter. "I wouldn't know, Mrs. Preston." She laughed, tossing her hair. "Good. You're just the help." Nathan called later, his voice cold. "Don't get any ideas, Sophie. The estate's ours." I smiled into the phone, saying nothing. Their arrogance was my weapon. They didn't see me as a threat. I needed the media on my side. The reading would be filmed, with Raleigh reporters invited due to Preston Properties' prominence. I contacted a journalist, Emma Hayes, from the Raleigh Times, sending an anonymous tip. "The Preston will has a surprise heir. Watch the reading." Emma replied, "I'll be there. Sounds like a story." I wanted the world to see the family's reaction when my name was read, their perfect image crumbling on camera. The day before the reading, I stood in my attic room, staring at my navy dress. Simple, elegant, powerful. My folder was packed: Evelyn's letter, voicemails, texts, and Lily's financial records. I texted Clara, "Ready?" She replied, "Evelyn would be cheering. Give 'em hell." I also called Lily, confirming she'd be in the crowd. "They're gonna lose it," she said, laughing. I nodded, my nerves electric but steady. The Prestons thought they'd keep me under their thumb. Tomorrow, they'd learn I was their new boss. Hey, if you're loving this revenge story, smash that subscribe button for Revenge Line. We drop epic family drama and takedowns every week. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Stay tuned because Sophie's about to claim the table. The Preston estate in Raleigh, North Carolina, was a monument to wealth. Gleaming chandeliers, polished mahogany, and a grand dining room where the family gathered for the reading of Evelyn Preston's will. I, Sophie Carter, stood at the back, clutching a folder packed with evidence of my bond with Evelyn, the matriarch who'd called me her true heir. My uncle Robert, his wife Diane, and their kids, Emily and Nathan, had treated me like a servant for a decade, calling me the poor cousin while I cooked, cleaned, and endured their taunts. They thought Evelyn's $40 million real estate empire was theirs to split. They didn't know I was the sole heir, and the cameras filming for legal records and Raleigh's media would capture their shock when my name was read first. Today I'd flip their table and claim their legacy. Clara, Evelyn's nurse, had ensured I was invited, slipping me onto the guest list despite the family's protests. My friend Lily, a former coworker, stood beside me, ready to back me up with evidence of the family's financial missteps. Emma Hayes, a journalist from the Raleigh Times, was in the crowd, her camera crew poised to record every moment. The Prestons sat at the front, Diane in a silk dress, Robert adjusting his cufflinks, Emily texting, Nathan smirking. They barely noticed me, assuming I was there to serve coffee. My navy dress was simple but sharp, my folder loaded with Evelyn's letter, voicemails, texts, and Lily's financial records. I was ready to rewrite their story. Margaret Walsh, the family lawyer, took her place at the head of the table, her face neutral. The room buzzed with anticipation, reporters scribbling, cameras rolling. "We're here to read Evelyn Preston's last will and testament," Margaret began, her voice steady. Diane leaned forward, whispering to Robert, probably planning their next vacation. Emily glanced up from her phone, smirking at Nathan. I stood still, my heart pounding, but my expression calm. Clara caught my eye, giving a subtle nod. The moment was here. Margaret opened the will. Evelyn's estate, including 70% of Preston properties, valued at $40 million, is distributed as follows. The room went quiet, every eye on her. To Sophie Carter, she said, pausing, I leave full ownership of Preston properties, including the Raleigh estate, downtown portfolio, and all commercial holdings, to be managed according to her vision for community development. The room froze. Diane's wineglass crashed to the floor, staining her dress. Robert's face turned purple, his voice a choke. The maid? Emily's phone slipped, her mouth open. Nathan stood, shouting, "This is a mistake!" I stepped forward, my voice clear and steady. I'm Sophie Carter, and I was more than your servant. Evelyn trusted me with her legacy. I opened my folder, holding up her handwritten letter. This is from Evelyn, Sophie, my true heir. As she wanted her properties used for Raleigh's community, affordable housing, not condos. I played a voicemail, Evelyn's voice echoing, Sophie, you're the only one I trust. The reporters scribbled furiously, cameras zooming in. Diane screamed, She's a nobody! Robert snapped, She manipulated Mother! Emily yelled, This is fraud! Margaret raised a hand. Evelyn's will is legally binding, backed by signed intent and witnessed revisions. Clara stood, her voice firm. I was there when Evelyn rewrote it. She chose Sophie for her heart. Lily stepped forward, holding up her USB. I have records of the family planning to sell Evelyn's properties against her wishes. She projected an email from Diane. Sell the downtown lots fast. The room gasped, the media buzzing. Emma Hayes's camera caught every second, the live feed streaming to Raleigh's elite. Robert tried to recover. This is a misunderstanding, he said, forcing a smile. Sophie's just a helper. I cut him off, my tone calm but cutting. You called me your maid while I cared for Evelyn and cleaned your messes. She saw your greed. I turned to the board of Preston Properties, seated at the table. I'll honor Evelyn's vision. Community centers, not yachts. The board nodded, some clapping. A board member, Ms. Turner, spoke up. Mrs. Carter, we support your leadership. Diane lunged forward, her face twisted. You'll never run this company. You're nothing, Margaret intervened. Mrs. Preston, the will grants Sophie 70% ownership. She's in charge. Nathan tried next, his voice shaking. We'll contest this. I smiled, holding up my folder. Go ahead. I have Evelyn's voicemails, texts, and Clara's testimony. North Carolina law favors clear intent. The reporters were eating it up, their cameras capturing Diane's meltdown and Nathan's stunned silence. Emily approached, her voice trembling. Sophie, how could you? I looked at her, unflinching. You mocked me while I scrubbed your floors. Now I own them. Robert and Diane tried next, their faces pale. Let's discuss this privately, Robert said. I shook my head. You didn't talk to me when I was just the help. Now you answer to me. The board confirmed my role as acting CEO, and I removed Diane and Robert from their advisory positions, citing their plans to violate Evelyn's wishes. The media went wild. Raleigh Maid inherits $40 million empire. I moved into an office at Preston Properties, overseeing plans for community housing and centers. The Raleigh estate, once their pride, was now my headquarters. Emily and Nathan faded from the social scene, their greed exposed. My aunt and uncle, who'd taken me in after Mom's death, called, offering apologies. I didn't need them. I'd built my own legacy. I stood in the mansion's sunroom where Evelyn and I had shared tea and said to the empty air, I cleaned your house. Now I own it. Hey, if you loved this epic takedown, Smash that subscribe button for Revenge Line. We drop the best family drama and revenge stories every week. Comment below and tell us where you're watching from. Thanks for joining us.